Thanks everyone for coming this morning and joining us to know more about Tu7oh and also the artists behind it. And yeah, let's jump right into it, just for the sake of time, so that you all have time to speak with the artists after the session. Just a little icebreaker question, just to start it off. This wasn't in the pre-prep, so I hope it's more impromptu. So tell me about, so we're in the month of July, the seventh month of the year, and it's been an interesting month, middle, right smack in the start of the second half of the year. Share a bit about like anything in this month in particular that has inspired you, or something that you've sort of like, whether it's a book or a movie or something that you discovered, an artist that have sort of inspired you this month, and yeah, tell us a bit more about that, if any, or anything in particular in this month that has inspired you or challenged you in any way. Oh, before we do that, I think I should introduce the artists here first. I'm so sorry I missed that. So we have Winnie here with us. Winnie, ERYN. So you see her artworks, all their artworks in the hall, and we have Maizul, and we have Benjamin and Cindy, who are the duos from Whitebone. And yeah, so we're glad to have them today. And yeah, to know you a bit better, can you share with us like anything that has inspired you this month?
Yes. Just recently, I watched the Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, The Seven, with the seventh scene. That reminds me that. So that is one of the films that inspired me to get the idea to produce artwork. Other than that, it's just seven is a seven magnificent. All these sevens is a quite special number to everyone.
I think for me, seven to play on to the seven theme. I think technically in December this is our seventh anniversary together as a couple, right?
Oh,
Technically yes, but December. So technically now we're like six years, 9 months, if my math is correct. Yeah, so I said seven. I think. To be fair, I think for both of us, we haven't really watched anything this month. We're quite busy. We did it.
Yeah, no, I think one of the really interesting things that happened to us this month is actually how, like in conjunction of Tu7oh, how everyone actually comes about and then tell us that, oh, they actually see the elements of seven in their life, like, like probably like 7 months ago, I realized that, oh, this is what I want to do, or like, oh, okay, I just started a new Instagram page and my first post got 7 likes and stuff like that. And it's interesting seeing like how everyone just trying to like tie in seven as well. So okay, it just feels like it's no longer just us. It's like everyone has the element of seven. Yeah.
For me, well, the theme gave me a lot of trouble. So I had a hard time relating to the number 7, I wouldn't lie. But then I realized yesterday as I was taking stock of things, I moved to Penang in 2015, decided to become a full-time artist around that time. So the time frame fits a little bit. It just suddenly struck me. I was like, whoa, I've been trying to live my dream for almost 7 years. So it was really heartening to see the response, to hear the conversations that people have, and to be part of this show with all these wonderful artists as well. So yeah, that is for me.
Thanks everyone. Very interesting that all of you kind of naturally drawn to the theme 7 and connected them with the 7th month. And I think that's what's interesting about this as well. Like it's just, if you think about it, we're just exploring a number, right? But somehow or rather, like whether it's the human psyche, we kind of find ways to connect with 7. And as we look at the artworks, and if in case you haven't seen it yet, but you will see that you will find different connections with 7, and perhaps whatever is presented that has nothing to do with 7, and you somehow picked it up as well. That's what's going to be interesting, and do share that later on as you explore it, and anything stands out to you. So Winnie, you mentioned that the theme 7 didn't quite connect with you, and that's what we want to explore in the next phase, like understanding what I suppose your reaction, all of your reactions were to when you were approached by Ivan, right? And then also because this is like 7 mini solos, so 7 artists coming together and really showing like your repertoire and also like what represents you during this time, during this phase in time of your career. So yeah, tell us a bit more about what I suppose your reaction was and what was your immediate sort of response to to the idea of 7. Perhaps you can start with Winnie, since you mentioned that it didn't connect with you, and then how was that process along the way?
So the worst got done because I had no choice. It was gonna happen. But we knew about the theme like 2 years ago, I think, or 3 years ago, right? 2019, 2019, yeah. So I was like, okay, it sounded really interesting. It was a good challenge because I had difficulties making work in a series. So I was making one off, so they didn't connect. And I wanted to try something that sort of has an overarching storyline and stuff like that. But I did nothing for the 3 years until January this year, and they're like, okay, it's going forward. So for 5 months, I was working, and that actually helped my practice a lot. And so because of that, somehow this mini series will now become its own extended series of work to a possible solo maybe in 2 years. So that is from my side. So I don't know if Maizul was like how your experience was.
7 is a very tough number. Okay, because usually I always created a very large piece, 16 pieces for my wall pieces. For this particular 7, it took me a while to think what else I'm going to produce. 7 scenes, 7 attitude, 7 politicians. I do not know. So I have to look again throughout my sketches, and I come up with the idea of pyramid story. There's a lot of pyramid story got hidden marks that's relevant in our political landscape. So from there, I started to write and sketch, and then it took me a few months to produce because sometimes I don't do only one work, but I produce a theater performance. So I have to stop here and I have to move somewhere else. And again, making a comic wall piece is like I'm a director, so all my character is like an actor. So I have to come up with a dialogue, with some of the research and write out. Yeah, I guess whatever that you see in this 7 of my work is a process. It's still ongoing, right? So the title of this book is Mula Semula, restart again. All right. Okay, I think for now we have to continue.
Okay, I think for Tu7oh, it started in 2019, right? Okay, I think like because we are both like a couple, we are husband and wife, but we also work together. So the process of working for Tu7oh, I mean, anybody here who's married, married or have like a long-term relationship with your partner, and that always that time where you want to go for dinner or lunch, and then you ask the other person, hey, what you want to eat? And the other person say, I don't know. And then you say, okay, well, how about something? And then they say they don't want. You ask them, you tell them, okay, what about that? They don't want, and they keep. So that's kind of like how the process it is with working. The same thing like art.
For 2 years.
Yeah, for 2 years, right? Yeah, for 2 years, 3 years actually. Yeah, actually, yeah. So that's kind of how it is, right? Like, you want to do something this? Nah. Oh, that? Nah. So that kind of. But at least for me, I think the idea really came because we're both we have like different styles, and always when you're working together, like different styles sometimes it don't match, right? You try to make them work, like it doesn't work. It's like like putting mayonnaise on ice cream, right? It doesn't work. I don't like mayonnaise, by the way, so I use that analogy. And as a husband and wife as well, like sometimes you don't want to get too personal about it, because when you argue with your wife, chances are like 100% of the time the husband will lose, and then I'll end up sleeping on the couch. I don't really like sleeping on the couch because I'm not very comfortable. And I think we kind of have a common ground. We try to say, okay, what can we do, looking back at our own past body of work, like what resonates well with people, And I think a lot of that came from like feedback from friends, feedback from like Ivan, you know, our amazing curator, and like family as well. Like they noticed certain styles that kind of resonate well, and we noticed that that style actually works better in our favor as well, because we try to have like a 50-50 partnership. Like, okay, we both do it together, like in terms of like hands-on. So this new series Soma is definitely a new thing for us. Like we're trying out like foreign materials, like a different working style, and we're hoping that this would actually push us forward better as both like partners and also individual artists. Anything? No. Okay. So at least I get the last word for now.
Thank you. So let's go into the artworks, like you mentioned, and then we can continue with either Cindy or Benjamin. Like you mentioned that this has somehow, and also through our conversations before, you mentioned how this have brought your working relationship together as White Bones to a different level. And can you like further elaborate that a little bit? And because Ben is in Benjamin is in illustration, so all the illustration works is mostly him, and Cindy does patterns and different textural works, and that's how both of their strength basically commend each other and comes together to what you will see. They culminates to what you will see in Soma, and that's not easy because, like you mentioned, both of you have different strengths, different perspectives, and somehow or other you have to work together and make sure that it weaves together, you know. And you mentioned how has this process sort of strengthened that relationship, and you know what, like how would that then weave into your future works, you think, from here?
Actually, I think for Tu7oh, the brief was given to us in 2019, right? Yeah. So I think for the whole duration of 3 years, we went through a lot of like changes in ideas, what we like, and it has brought us further. Actually, it separates us more because when you do that, you step back, you start to see, you know, like a clearer picture. Okay, what is the current situation? You know, sometimes people are always trying to tie together. Oh, you know, we'll definitely work well together. That doesn't happen in real life. Okay, and one thing we learn is that you have to embrace the differences. It's the differences that makes it unique, right? Like I always tell Ben and always tell, like, you know, like some of our friends as well, no two people are the same, but there's always definitely one common ground. Like it could be we went to the same place, we traveled to the same country, we like the same food, or we are afraid of something, you know, and we use that as a common ground to move forward, you know, in our artwork. And with Soma, our series, is a very new work for us, a very new area of exploration as well. And somehow we felt that everyone has been through a lot. I'm very sure for all the Tu7oh artists and everyone else as well. And Soma has been like a therapy for us. We really enjoy working on it because somehow it is the first series that we just jump in and like we both know what we are doing and there's no like disagreement or anything, and it just works well. So when you cultivate that working relationship for so long, and you know, thankfully one day you just have that aha moment and you know where you are at.
It's kind of like the theme behind Soma as well, right? Like for self-reflection, and then have that aha moment or that form of clarity for your audience. It's interesting that how that translates into the work as well, based on your current experience of where you both are. So that's interesting, and I hope that when you all do look at the works, that you have that in mind and think about that as you explore the pieces. Speaking of weaving two things together, we have Maizul here, who has experience in various different disciplines, and I think what's most interesting is, you know, you have a very strong theater background that dates back, you know, all the way in the 90s, and you're also teaching theater and script writing at the university right now. And along with that, with your graphics communications background and fine art, like how do you weave all this together? And it's very evident actually in this series, in this Mula Semula series, And can you talk a bit about that and how all those came together and the process behind that?
I would say I have like 3-4 different hats,
More than that.
but it's quite tough. It's a quite tough journey actually, because usually I train as a graphic designer, but I really don't like to stay in one place, looking at a computer or laptop in very long time. So I started to have something challenging. So I tried to sneak in the theatre production to see what I can get. So I learned to act. I come up with a different people in making stage design. So I say, oh, this is something nice. So I start to learn since 1999, and end up, I get bored. I sneak in to the fine arts department. I have a formal drawing, but I don't have a formal painting. So I get along with the professional artist, stay with them a few months. So from there, it's developed. The talents develop. So I always tell myself, how do I want to get my own identity, my own signature? So that's why in 2006 I produced these wall pieces. I love comic. I love to direct, and I come up with a lot of literature and some of graphic elements. So what you can see in my wall pieces, there's about 3 elements in one panel: fine arts, graphics, and also a theatrical element. So from there, 2006 until 2012, I've been used this artwork as a part of my signature. And then in 2020, I come back with this joint. So it's not an easy path. You have to come up with a signature, because in Malaysia, in the local Malaysian landscape, everyone can do abstract, everyone can do painting. But how are you going to create your own identity? That is a big question. I'm glad, and I'm not regret having that. Right, thank you.
I kind of relate to the whole theatrical, even though I have zero theater background, I do not intend to be on stage. But I love movies, and what I enjoy about movies is the making of. So the behind the scenes, how everything is set up. So in a sense, like similar to Maizul's works, my pieces are a little bit theatrical. I set the background, I sprinkle the characters in. It's like, oh, if I add one more person, what's going to happen? So that's my concept for my Tu7oh piece. It's just that I need to do 7 artworks. Oh, what if I just increase the number of people and it gets more and more and more chaotic? So I'm like, okay, what if I make a 2x3 feet piece and there's like 50 characters? What's going to happen? So it's going to go that way. So it snowballs. And the main thing is also going back to what got me into art in the first place, which is black and white drawing. And I was sort of like exploring different mediums, painting, trying to find my identity as well. But for this piece, I just felt that, I miss kind of doing work for myself. Before this, the past few years, I've been trying to figure out how to do work that connect people, but I realized it's because I wasn't maybe as authentic to myself. So I just figured, just be me, and then go back to what I love, which is just purely drawing. But I switched the medium because I was using marker pens at first. And over time, it sort of lost a bit of the challenge, because marker pen is very easy to use. You just uncap it, you just draw. And it's immediate and it's nice. But the line is too even. I just feel that I needed something more. So I switched back to the traditional, the metal nib pens, where you have to dip in a pot of ink, draw, now it's drying up, dip again. And sometimes if the ink drops, I'm like, so there's a little bit of challenge, and it forces me to be more focused on the artwork instead of thinking, with people like this, how am I going to get into the Malaysian market? So it seemed to have worked, and I'm glad, and I am really happy to expand it even further through my drawings to focus on my strengths instead of trying to follow what everyone else is doing all the time as well. So yeah, that is my piece.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that in because what I've noticed also with I'm not sure if it's Tu7oh in particular or if this is part of the question, like is this an artist approach to different exhibitions to challenge your techniques to experiment something new? Because this one in particular, I noticed that all of you, not just the artists here today, but all 7 artists are challenging their mediums in different ways. They're either exploring a new medium that they've not done before, or connecting the current medium that or techniques that they've always been doing, but pushing it sort of like a step further. And I want to let's just understand that a little bit more. And Winnie, you started touching on that a little bit. You used a different pen and how that has challenged you. And can you tell us a bit more about that journey? Like, were there any difficult scenarios that made you feel like, oh, because it's a 2-year process, right? And like there's so much time, and with time comes, areas where it gives you doubt. You start doubting yourself. There's so much time. You make it, and then you look at it after a while, and you change. Your perspective changes. So were there any challenges along that way? And also like talk. Let's go technical a little bit to talk a bit more about the techniques that you use and how that has grown from your practice before to the current state of that it is now.
Okay, maybe I can share a bit. So I had a major change in my life. During the MCO, I started working full-time again. So I had to let go of the idea of being a full-time artist. And somehow that helped me a lot because I think I'm a person who needs a certain structure. So working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 actually worked out better for my art instead of the other way around. It made me focus and it also gave me 2 years away from my art to start again. So to wipe the slate clean, so to say. In terms of technique, I also focus more on, look deeper on what I'm doing, which is paper cutting as well. I'd like to combine all these different mediums, but I've just sort of pushed them together and never really looked at how they played off each other. Why drawing? Why paper cutting? So I look more into traditional Chinese paper cutting. If you see my pieces, there is a certain reflection in it, and that's because I changed the way I compose my work. That is no longer flat. Yeah. So I folded the paper 4 times. It's a very simple technique, but it yields a certain visual result that I wasn't expecting, and that I'm quite happy with because it allows me to play the narrative off each other within the same page instead of side by side. Before I was doing that, I'll make one piece, another piece, and then the narrative plays off each other. Now I can do it in the same piece. It's either cyclical or it branches out, so there's a lot to explore. And technical wise, nothing else really changed besides that. I sort of put painting aside. But I mean, I still want to continue my other mediums like wooden cutouts or more of the diorama, like multiple layered paper cutouts as well. But I am a lot more careful about, I used to try to put everything into one piece and it's so condensed, and then I realized that, whoa, it's too much to take in. So this is actually a very stripped down version of what I used to make. And yeah, I'm quite happy with it. So I don't know how your process goes. Maizul, maybe?
Well, my process having this wall piece. First of all, I love to read comics. There are a few books that I've read. Marshall McLuhan, Freedom as a Message, and also Nauchowski, the political books. And to me, these are kind of my perspective, how I'm going to construct and how I'm going to relate this our political landscape. I believe my country, Malaysian politics, is like a circus. Since then, I during the MCO, I thought I want to begin with these things. As an artist, I'm quite sensitive to see my country, my people, and I start to write again, and because of this politics, people thought we are like a terrorism, we are like a terrorist. When we do arts in Malaysia, in the end of the day, police come and take you out. Okay. But again, as a political artist, it's a survival. You believe what you see, right? And show, not to tell. Because in my 7 series here, I had this oppression element, lies, corruption, commitment, greedy. That's all the seven attitudes, This I put it to let viewer to enjoy. But when you look at it, it's very poetry and very satirical. But those, I don't want it to be direct. I just want to have that poetry element. But for those who are really understand the moment of time, actually this right now. Okay, we can have this Alibaba Bujalapo. There's a main character, a perompak, which is acted by Piramli. The big thief is free to go. Yep. They're happy to do whatever they do. That's what happened here. That's what the things that I would like to share. Okay. Again, right, as an artist, we have the right to express emotion. There's no right and wrong with art.
Did you find it challenging at all to sort of, while having that narrative, but at the same time, because going back to our previous conversation, you mentioned that when it comes to political art, you try not to also alienate like people, right? Or while you want to evoke an emotion, you want to try to not. You mentioned you want to try to not alienate people. That sounds challenging to me, but like, how do you then decide how to present that message, but at the same time making sure that the audience sort of understand and empathize rather than getting too angry reading it and like, oh, I don't agree with you, and then like, I don't want to look at the other pieces and understand it. Like, how do you balance that?
I started this since 2006. First when I created this, I have a lot of comments. Oh, you cannot do this. You are too direct. So when I have my second solo called Propaganda, popular ganda. It's propaganda. It's called propaganda. So that moment in 2012, that's my turning point, whereby I have a very random people came to my exhibition. 1 or 2 was special branch. So I got, very good advice. So from there, I stopped. I do something else, more on technical, but still in politics. And end up in 2020, I started to revise, recompose what I have gained from my previous exhibition. And tried not to very direct, but tried to come up with a poetry, with a more metaphor characters, so that these are the person that I'm heading to. These are the person that I'm tagging to. But at the same time, it's more entertainment as well. So it has some hidden marks. Try to play hide and seek. All right.
Hey, thanks very much, CD and Ben.
We're talking about like techniques.
Like the process, any challenges as you explore the different techniques and share with us what were some of the techniques that you discovered along the way that is now with the artworks that is implemented in the artworks.
I think the main key challenge is for me, because we talk about this. I talk to my wife a lot about this as well. Like, the main thing that I kind of want to is to make sure that we both have at least a 50-50 in it. Like, it's not like driven by one person and the other person is just kind of like a assistant in a sense. No, I didn't really want that because I wouldn't feel good about it, in all honesty. So the idea of Soma, obviously, like you mentioned for our previous question, like it came from like reviewing back our body of work and seeing what has good feedback from people. I think we kind of really approach this from a graphic design standpoint, because I majored, well, technically my diploma is in graphic design. She's mass comm, but also there is a hint of like creative design. So similar like Maizul and I suppose like Winnie as well. Like I'm not really from like a fine art background. I did my degree in illustration, But again, that's like kind of commercial illustration. So when we approach this, we approach it from a graphic design perspective as well. Like what resonates with people, and you know, like obviously we take the public's feedback and opinion into account, like how we would approach a design work as well. The idea came about when me and Sydney were having a family dinner with like a bunch of relatives, and as anybody here who has attended relative, family dinners know, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, right? Right? You got your uncle, aunties, they'll be like talking, and I was saying, hey, you married me, what's the next step and all that. I'd be like, and we kind of got the talking there, and we thought about experimenting with different materials. And I think like for those of you who have followed our work at least for a bit, would know that we tend to play a lot of like gradients and like colorful color transitions, right? Like from different colors to another color. And in order to get that in a physical medium, there's not a lot of things that we can do besides like painting it or spray painting. And we figured like, why not try with something else that's different, that gets interaction from nature as well, like natural sunlight, and also something that we can actually shape it ourselves. So that's why we came out with this like sort of like vinyl, iridescent holographic vinyl stickers. The process is quite simple actually. Like we plan out the shapes and we both cut them. But the interesting thing about this process is that neither of us will know how the actual outcome is going to be, because I plan the shapes, she chooses the color, and she layers the color. So it's not like I would know how it's going to look like, and she wouldn't know how it's going to look like either until we cut each piece and then we layer them all into one another, and just like and then we see the final outcome. So I think that's kind of like a nice surprise. It's not so like, oh, it's gonna be like that from the start. It doesn't until we stick the final layer on it. And I think that's interesting. Technique-wise, I suppose I would say it's quite straightforward. It takes a lot of backtracks, a lot of cutting, and because it's stickers as well, right? Like sometimes you stick on it, you want to remove it, then you have to like remove the residue and all that. So I think a lot of this is like really boring, like really really mundane trial and error. Like it's nothing too exciting. I think the exciting part was literally just like when you put the final piece of it and then you see the outcome of it, and you're like, oh, okay, now I see why you layered the color this way, like at least for me. So
yeah, I think what Ben said. Actually, technique-wise, it is quite straightforward because like we're just working with vinyls, cutouts, and layerings. But yeah, the element of surprise is that how it will turn out at the end of the day, and we can get pretty anal about it. Like by the time like we see the final turnout and then we don't like it, and then we just scratch it and then we do the whole thing. And I would like to apologize. I keep dipping back because I just like to see how people interact with the mirror. Yeah, so actually technique execution, it was quite straightforward. But the conceptualizing, it takes time. And I think we really agree with what Vinny said, like finding your own identity. And back then we always have this mindset where we create artworks for exhibition, create what people want, but during that process we sort of like lose ourselves. So doing Tu7oh actually not only challenges and brings us back to where where we want to be, but also pushes us to explore new mediums and techniques, even though it's like a simple techniques, but it was really a fun journey.
I think just quickly, and because like Ivan's such a nice guy that we didn't really want to let him down, so we tried to push. It's too much of he's like too much of a nice guy, like for us to like really like make him disappointed. So we got we got to do this for Ivan, like not for us, for Ivan.
Yes, he does that to a lot of people with this indirect expectations. No, I'm kidding. It pushes us like to be our best and to explore. Yeah. Speaking of that, like, right now, like, what I would like to know is like, so you talked about learning about yourself through that process and really going into how you identify as an artist and your practice and the different techniques that you explore. as this exhibition brings together 7 artists that has very different personalities, very different techniques, very different practices as well, and backgrounds. Like all of you, you have full-time jobs and you're doing art on the side in your free time, whereas the other 4 artists are full-time artists. So having involved in this exhibition together, what I'd like to know is like what have you learned from each other in that process? Because it's been a 2 years process as well, right? That you all multiple discussions and then exploring with each other. And I suppose there are some times where I suppose you push each other as well when you learn about each other's concept. Like, oh, you have that moment like, oh, okay, I want to push mine further as well. Let's talk a bit about that. Is there anything in particular that you've learned from the different artists in this show? Not only the artists present here today, but like the other 4 artists as well. Any particular series or piece that connected with you, or something that like gave you an aha moment, or anything that you've learned from there? Understanding the exchanges between the different artists in the show.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start it off. We have all sort of like exhibited in different shows, like sometimes together, like not all together like this studio. So, but actually the person that I want to talk about did the talk last week already. So it's actually Esther. I've done a lot of shows with her, and also I was her studio was the first one I encountered when I came to Penang in Straits Key. And it gave me a space to sort of start creating me as an artist as well, my identity. At the same time, I saw how she approached her art career in a sense, like not being from an art background, but doing watercolors step by step. And I just thought, hey, it's actually okay to take my time and to not rush into things, which I was, running, trying to chase like an identity. But if you build on your practice, it will come naturally. So that is the biggest takeaway I get from being in shows with her and seeing how her work has developed over the past, I think I've known her 5 years-ish or more. Yeah, so that was like, it was like a mentorship, but not formally in a sense. So I tend to take in a lot of other people's experiences and to see what works with me and what doesn't work with me, because not everything will work with everyone. But it resonated a lot with me, like how she approached it. And there were also other artists in our group as well, like Sharon, pushing a medium that is not often recognized, like color pencils. So, and to see how they have slowly built their work up, not because they want to show that they're an artist or to fit in, but because their work is important to them, it matters to them. And sometimes it's all down to that. So it has helped me immensely. And then somehow the people sitting here also, we all have similar backgrounds in a sense, like we've done graphic design, we've gone through like the degrees and everything and learning on the job. And then our approaches are very, very different in the end, how we approach our art career. So it's been very gratifying to see how everyone has built themselves, built their identity as well, and to learn and grow from each other without expectations too. So yeah.
Maybe it's not related to what I've been doing here. For the past 2 years during lockdown, I think everyone had a struggle. I lost few friends. I lost my brother and my sister. To have that, it took me a while, not producing artwork. And I produced most of my abstract work, not the wall piece. That contribute my loss. I would say this the new family, all the 7 artists and ERYN and the rest of my artist friends. We had a Christmas gathering. We have a Christmas gathering so that it put me into one figure. Last time I have broken into pieces. get me together with these awesome people. And from there, all my sadness, my loss, I just produce as a memory, not to explain, just to put myself together with these new people. Past is past, you know. So having my wall piece, I guess this is just a new chapter. And again, it's not related with my loss. This is about all the political landscape. Yeah, your question is quite general. Yeah, when you talk about how I connect this, is very fresh. When you talk about someone who, yeah. So, but there's an abstract work that I'm going to display or maybe to exhibit soon that related to my loss, my sister, my brother, my artist friend, my protege, Nasir. These are the 4 beautiful people that are in my life. It's abstract work. It's not related to comic. It's all about my music. Yeah. So within these 2 years, I have come up with a 2 volume. One is abstract work, one is a comic, one. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. And, yeah, very personal and emotional, and it's been a very challenging 2 years for Maizul. So thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah. I think in terms of inspiration, I suppose I think similar to Winnie as well. Like like we've exhibited a few times before. Like I think like the common denominator here is Ivan, because he works with us a lot, and he's an eye for like talented artists and all that. Not much better than me. So I do get inspiration from them, but I think I suppose like for myself, like she advises me a lot. So like try not to compare yourself to other people, like especially the other artists, because like you're like, as you mentioned before, like no one person, no 2 person are the same. So I suppose like I try to take inspiration from other artists, but I try not to like be too inspired to the point of like, oh, I want to do something exactly like that in a sense. And I suppose I reached the point where I'm comfortable with like my own style and my own body of work. As I mentioned, like we both have totally different styles. So I have my own style, which I'm comfortable with now, and I don't really see the point of like trying to emulate other people. So that kind of cuts down on like the inspiration in the sense of like trying to I want to do that kind of stuff. I just got inspired by this artist like doing something really awesome, and I want to do. I'm inspired to do something of my own as well. So I think that's kind of like how I would approach it now. Like back then, I used to like try to copy other people's stuff. But I like this stuff, so I'm gonna take it here and there. But I noticed like no matter how I do it, I will never be like that person. So now it's more of like, I like that style, and maybe I could incorporate a little bit of like elements into my own style, that kind of fit, without borderlining like straight up like picking up the idea. So I think that's the sort of like a growth as a designer for me, at least.
Yeah, I think pretty similar to actually similar to Winnie's and Maizul experience, a combination of inspiration from other artists and also personal experiences. So like I follow a lot of like different content creators, and it's the dialogues, the things that they go through, the experiences is what inspired me to like conceptualize the Tu7oh artwork with Ben. And I think on a personal note, what actually inspired me to just keep creating, like for White Bones is the way I look at my family. I actually came from a very traditional family, and they're always like, like you study, you grow up, you get married, have kids, that's it, that's your life, But now my parents, they're older, my dad is a retired musician, and then he kept saying that, oh, I want a recording studio, I want to do this, I should have done that, and it's the should have part that scares me. And yeah, even though like we have day jobs, and like all these amazing artists have day jobs, and they can still dabble in art so much better than I do, you know, like they can juggle it so much better than I do. So that's the thought that scares me, you know, like if I don't do it now, like when will I do it? You know, because we kept thinking that, oh, we will live till like we're 50 or 60, but what happens if, you know, like I don't get through tomorrow, right? So it's you know, like living and creating art, you know, like so that you don't have any regrets in life. Just get it out there. Yeah.
Right, thanks. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I guess before we open to the floor, we'd like to take some questions from the floor in case you all have any. But before we do that, let's go into what's next. Like after Tu7oh, you know, this 2 years, 2.5 years journey, and discovering the different techniques that you have. I think some of you did mention already some future plans. But yeah, let's dive into that a little bit more and like, what's next? Like, what are you gonna explore after this, and how does that then, I suppose, shape your practice? You think? Maybe you can start Winnie first.
Okay. So I did mention that possible solo is in the works. I gave myself 2 years because I'm not full time anymore. And even if I were, I think 2 years is a good time frame to produce something that is strong. And a lot of things go into my work. So I don't just get inspiration from one thing. Like life is an inspiration to me. My job is an inspiration. I'm like, wow, I can never imagine the things. And even looking for a place like real estate is also an inspiration. So all these will somehow feature in the solo, if with maybe characters, new characters, getting up to no good and all that. So it's exciting, and I'm part of another show. I think early next year with ERYN again, because I like the themes he set, and they challenged me in the way that I want to be challenged, and to help my work grow in the way that I feel is aligned with where I want to go. So there's, you know, the challenge of producing two works which will be seen maybe in different places. And yeah, maybe to deal with loss as well, because we did lose quite a few important people in our circle. And then beyond that, I think I'll just focus on the solo for now and to make as best work as I can. So yeah.
Perhaps next year, I would like to exhibit my abstract artwork called as a Rabak Melayu. Rabak is a torn apart, torn that pieces by pieces. And Melayu as a race, as a Malay. Another one is rhetoric. So that is quite personal. There will be a 28 series because I'm going to have my fourth solo after 2014. It took me like 9 years to produce it. For the wall pieces, I guess I need to take some time because that process it will take me about 1 or 2 years to produce. You know, to compose, to get the characters in and out. Yeah, but again, I wanted to have my fifth solo, this wall piece, as a mula semula, just to come up with a very good narrative about our political landscape. Okay, as long as I'm happy, as long that I'm trying to give a message to my audience, that is will be my happiest moment. Yeah, probably in another 2024, I might stop a little bit for this visual arts. Maybe I jump into my performing art in Yogyakarta, just to you know, to explore a few things. All right.
Well, for me, maybe future plans for this Soma series. I suppose like definitely, you know, you want to make it better, you know, try out new things. Yeah, it's kind of like an action movie, right? Like everyone here watches like, you know, the new Marvel, Star Wars and whatnot. Like, oh, the first one comes out, it's good. The second one comes out, like, wouldn't say it's better in terms of like storyline, but it's better in terms of like, more budget, more cast, it's more colorful, it's more explosions, there's more guns and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I want to do it. It's like, yeah, Soma 1, then Soma 2 is going to come out, and it's gonna Soma even harder. That sort of thing. Like, just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep making it better, I suppose. And just working on like some personal projects. I think maybe for me personally, I might not be that great of an artist to like focus on solos yet. So I don't think I have that in mind yet for a solo, but I'm definitely pushing for like Soma, like different materials, investing in like different materials and like different equipment as well to be able to produce it in like a grander scale. Because I think like we wanted to do Soma initially was as an installation piece actually. But just that logistics didn't really kind of work out at the time. So we might want to actually push that further as an installation. Yeah. So look out for Soma 2 coming up next summer, Soma Harder.
But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Winnie, Maizul, Cindy, and Benjamin. Thank you so much. And thank you all of you as well for sitting through the conversation.